Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to this month's Ummatics Colloquium. My name is Ahsan Shafiq. I will be moderating today's session with our esteemed guest, Professor Monzer Kahf. Our own Dr. Osama Lazmi couldn't run the session today due to health issues. Please keep him in your duas. As you may know, the Ummatics Institute aims at empowering Muslims towards the realization of a unified Islamic civilization for the benefit of the Ummah and humanity at large. Our colloquium serves such mission through steering an academic conversation on different Ummatic topics. At the colloquium, what we try is to shed light on themes that revolve around the questions of what does and should the Ummatic unity look like and how to get there. The themes which we discuss are classified under 6 categories: identity, people, social movements, in addition to the state, regional, and global levels of analysis. The 6 categories offer us an opportunity to think about the Ummah as a being that needs to be understood and nurtured on micro, meso, and macro levels. Such levels generate research questions that help link the Ummah down to the individual and the intervening layers. As part of our focus on the economic aspect, we are continuing the conversation that Dr. Riham Khafagi launched at our last colloquium over Islamic endowments, the Awqaf, Waqf. Dr. Khafagi attempted to unpack the tension between the nation state and Muslim civil society and explored the prospects of developing the Waqf to reclaim its historical role in strengthening and uniting the Muslims. Today, we will try to dive deeper into this topic and look at the financial side of the discussion to explore what Islamic social finance is, which the Waqf makes only one component out of. Our guest today is the distinguished scholar of Islamic economics and finance, Dr. Monzer Kahf. He will be explaining the concept of Islamic social finance and the methods to implement it in today's world. Dr. Kahf is widely known for his contributions to the field of Islamic economics and finance over the last 4 decades. He is the author of 35 books, more than 75 articles, and has contributed to numerous conferences and encyclopedia entries on Awqaf, Zakat, Islamic finance, and banking and other areas of Islamic economics. Dr. Kahf has served as a collaborating expert at the Islamic Fiqh Academy, an IMF Consultant on Islamic Finance, the head of research in IRTI, Islamic Development Bank, a Senior Research Economist, the Director of Finance in the Islamic Society of North America, among other roles. Currently, Dr. Kahf is a professor of Islamic finance and economics at the Faculty of Economics and Management at the Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University in Turkey. Inshallah, we'll be starting a session today. During the session, please feel free to drop your questions in the questions and answers box, which we will read to the guest following his presentation, inshallah, which will last for almost 50 minutes. Professor, the floor is yours, inshallah. Please proceed.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My subject is on Islamic social finance, but as an introduction, please allow me to note, of course, after Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which I said it already, please allow me to note that in fact, the non-godly guided system had failed in reality. And one expression of this failure, especially in the social arena, in the socio-economic area, a clear feature of that failure is given in this latest report of the Oxfam organization, which kind of monitors the poverty in the world. This report was issued for the 2023, submitted to the conference in Switzerland. Poverty has literally increased in the world. At the same time, the share of the rich of the total GDP of the world has increased, especially the highly rich, not the moderate rich or upper middle class or what. So the gap, in other words, has increased. And this is because of definitely several factors, not only one element that contribute to this. And we will discuss, inshallah, in our discussion here, uh, the Islamic aspect. How does our religion and our total economic system, how does it deal with this issue, and how it does not allow it to happen to begin with. Not only it deals with it after it happens, but in both ways, the issue we will discuss it from this point of we will realize that Islamic social finance and the Islamic economic system in its totality is social friendly, environmental friendly, basically philanthropic, market correcting, and economic gap reducing. We will discuss these points one by one and see how really this is achieved in the Islamic economic system. Uh, Especially, my focus will be on the finance system, and I will look into these 5 points. The one, the role, the social role of for-profit Islamic finance, the Islamic third sector that consists of Zakat, Awqaf, charity, and their like, the how market failure is being corrected, and of course we will discuss it then of the different kinds of market failure. And then we will discuss the pre-market wealth diffusion, the distribution of wealth before you enter the market, pre-market point. And then finally, we will discuss the fiscal system and its role in closing the gap and not allowing, rather, the gap to take place or to happen. For profit Islamic finance, I claim, and I make it as a statement, that for profit Islamic finance is the most contributor to society and to what is called today social finance. The most important element in the contribution to social finance, I would put it above zakah and above awqaf and above charity, because the main activities of human beings is directed through the for-profit Islamic finance. When you adopt the Islamic finance system, and then by itself, it has its social objectives to be, as I mentioned earlier, being socially friendly, closing the gap between the rich and the poor, being also environmentally friendly, etc. So the for-profit Islamic finance really is the first and most important element in what is being called today, over the last 2 decades or so, as the social finance in worldwide. So Islamic for-profit finance, unlike what many people think of it, so unlike what many of us may think, and very often many of us think, for-profit Islamic finance is the most important component of social Islamic finance. For-profit Islamic finance, because of its essential properties, it requires owning a property, owning a thing, owning an asset, owning goods, owning anything. You cannot provide Islamic finance without passing through the property ownership of what you are financing. It doesn't work otherwise. Because Islamic finance can be performed either through sale or through leasing or through sharing. All sale, lease, and sharing require the existence of a property that is owned, but also that has two important characteristics. Without them, there cannot be Islamic finance. These two important characteristics: one, that this property must be able to generate, to create real additional value. If it does not create real additional value, you don't got any return. And if you are not qualified even to get any return, therefore you cannot use it as a basis for for-profit finance. The second thing, it has to be morally committed. This is an important point. In Islam as religion, a thing that is not consistent with the moral values. I will come to some explanation of the moral values later, but now take it as a statement. A thing that is not consistent with the moral values is not even a thing, is not even a property, should have only one destiny, that is to be destroyed, to be non-existing. So anything, any item in the world that is not consistent with the moral values cannot be a property to begin with. When you apply the Islamic system, this is not a property. For instance, a pack of cigarettes has no value in the Islamic system at all, and it is not a property. And definitely you cannot make or take a pack of cigarettes as a basis for financing, as a property that makes a basis of financing in the Islamic finance system. Okay, so now how do I go to the next slide? It is not giving me this option. Okay, now, accordingly, for-profit Islamic finance, the financial intermediation concept is a double concept, not like interest-based banks. In interest-based banking, the intermediation is pure financial, that is between the savers or the units in the economy that has some excess funds that they don't need them for the time being. These are savers, depositors in the financial intermediary institutions. And between these savers and the users of funds, which could be businesses or consumers, both. The Islamic financial intermediation is double-edged. It is not only finance, it's not only intermediation between the savers and the users of funds. whether businesses or consumers. It is also between the suppliers of goods and the users of goods. And by goods, I mean goods, assets, and services. So between their suppliers and their users, without infringing on the user's right. As a user, say I am a consumer. As a consumer, if I want a refrigerator for my house, I I am the one who makes decision to have a refrigerator. I am the one who makes decision of its quality and its description and specifications, etc. I am the one who even determine the supplier of the item I want to buy. Then I go to the Islamic bank. The bank will not give me money. The bank will tell me, we buy this good and give it to you on credit. Same thing for leasing. We buy this asset and give it to you for on installment or on credit, ending with ownership. The same thing if a businessman has or want to have some kind of business, say a factory to make cups or shoes, or even a shop to sell these, taking them from producers and make them reach the consumers, or expanding that project. Then the Islamic bank, who makes the choice of the project and the choice of the thing that you deal with, it is the business person, not the Islamic bank. The Islamic bank will go into partnership with it, and partnership, of course, with all the characteristics of partnership. Therefore, Islamic financial intermediation, it is in fact a commercial intermediation between suppliers and users of goods and services and assets, etc. And at the same time, financial intermediation between savers and investors. This is absolutely grandiosely, I should say, different from the interest-based financial intermediation. That makes the finance in Islamic system part of generating added value. Without being, you will be part of the generation itself of the added value, because you buy the commodity and sell it or give it for leasing, or you share in the production of that commodity. Implications: for profit Islamic finance becomes society friendly because it will produce only things that are useful to society. We will come to the ethical point and we will discuss it. It will become also developmental by nature, because every single Islamic finance transaction gives a signal to the market, to the supplier, to the producers, produce more. Your commodities are demanded in the market, produce more. So it is by its nature developmental. I wouldn't say interest-based financing is not developmental. Interest-based financing may be developmental or may be destructive, as a matter of fact. If I got the financing to go and gamble in Las Vegas, this is negative really to the society. This is not society friendly. This hurts the society. Or if I get financing to produce more liquor, this hurts the society and increases the cost of medicine, the health cost, the cost of accident and everything that happens in the society. It is not necessarily socially friendly. But yes, Many finance, when I take finance from a conventional bank, interest-based bank, to finance to buy a new house, or to buy a car, or to for business to buy computers in order to sell them later in my shop. All these are similar to Islamic finance, but that's not all what interest-based finance do. Most of the return that comes in interest-based finance comes, for instance, from rescheduling debts. Most of the profit in interest-based financing comes from rescheduling debt. Rescheduling a debt does not add anything to the GDP at all. And it's fake to consider interest as an element in calculating GDP. It is not an element. Interest is a price of debt. In reality, it's only a price of debt. And whether the debt is paid today or paid tomorrow, that does not affect the GDP. And it shouldn't then affect it. That's another issue. We will discuss it outside our discussion today. The reconsideration of the calculation of GDP, the way it is done by the United Nations in the capitalist system, is not acceptable and is not socially friendly, because it adds many elements that are in the GDP which do not really benefit a human being. Rather, they may hurt a human being, and they do not add any product that anyone can use. Rescheduling a debt does not increase the quantity of goods and services that are offered to consumers in a society, any society. It is by definition then Islamic finance developmental. It is also environmental friendly, because we do not accept the any product or any process that hurts the environment. For instance, we have this Kyoto Agreement to reduce the exhaust of CO2 in the air and other harmful gases. There is a contract in New York that you can sell your share that is allowed to you. If you don't use it in your factory, all of it, you can sell part of it to others. What are you selling, guy, here? You are selling the ability to hurt humanity, to hurt other people, to hurt newborn babies, to hurt the environment that they will live in. Can this be sold? If you cannot use all the share that is assigned to you, it's well and good, it's beautiful. You should reduce it. Then your share should be reduced without giving a share to another one to produce instead of it, to release gases, harmful gases in the environment. It's unbelievable to have such a contract existing in the market today. Again, Islamic for-profit finance is ethically committed. I mentioned that earlier, but now I want to explain what does it mean. What is the ethicality in the Islamic economic system? This is given in the Quran, in one of the verses in the Quran that says, if the harm of a thing is more than its benefit, then it shouldn't be. If the benefits are more than the harm, then that thing is okay. And who determines benefits and harms? Who determines it? Notice the Quran was addressing the pagan of Mecca, telling them these stories, these rules. So who determines? It's our human mind in a scientific way. And in application to that, for instance, we consider cigarette consumptions, production, even farming of tobacco, etc., is not acceptable all over in Islamic finance anyway. and by any Islamic financial institutions. We do not accept the financing any of the processes of tobacco or cigarettes. Why do we do that? It is not mentioned in the Quran as prohibited. Simply in applying the rule. Once science, once it is determined by science, and it happened essentially in the United States, in America, by research in America, scientists concluded that cigarettes are harmful or tobacco is harmful, whether smoking or sniffing or chewing. All tobacco is harmful for these uses. So all of it then is determined in the Sharia advisement of all Islamic banks that this is a prohibited item, although it is not mentioned in the Quran. It is in applying this scientific rule. And remember, we take science from any scientist who is knowledgeable. And definitely, we take only what is final. We don't take theories. We don't take assumptions. And the example of it also that some 30 years ago, many Muslims were smoking, and many Muslim scholars, very specialized in Sharia, were smoking. My own father used to sniff tobacco as sniffing, and I used to help him also in preparing it for him. At that time, we did not know that it is harmful. And once we knew it is harmful, we cut it off completely, and Islamic financial institutions do not deal with it at all. So the determination of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable here is science. And by the way, science also said its word about liquor, that the only non-harmful quantity of liquor for a human body or human cells is the amount of zero. Anything beyond zero is definitely harmful. Well, a grape is beautiful and is very useful also, and it has antioxidants. So eat a grape, but don't take liquor. Islamic finance is fair. Look at the rule, the fundamental rule. Earning is by owning a useful thing, a thing that generates added value. And if it doesn't generate added value, you don't earn. So earning is strictly related to owning an asset or a good or a service that generate added value. By creating added value. Without creating it, you don't earn in Islamic finance. So this is important. Then why all is this? Because Islamic finance enhances an attitude of Islamic for-profit finance. I emphasize this point. Enhances an attitude of altruism and caring about others. We don't want to hurt anyone. Hurting anyone is not acceptable in Islamic finance. So if tobacco hurts, we eliminate tobacco. If liquor hurts, we eliminate liquor, and anything that hurts definitely is out of the basket that is accessible in Islamic finance. Of course, that applies to individuals, to society at large, and to environment. We channel resources to produce goods and services. For instance, we don't accept the concept of rescheduling debt for increment. Resources should be channeled instead of being used to pay some other people debt. I take up financing from an interest-based bank to pay a debt that I owe to somebody else, to my aunt, for instance. That is not acceptable in the Islamic financial system. we channel resources from debt trading, debt asset, now from again non-moral practices that you know about, I'm sure, practices of goods and services also, for non-value added practices. Any non-value added practice like future sale. You know what happens in future sales? Suppose we have 1,000 pound on a table, and imagine, yani, the market is like that, really, the commodity market. Around that table, there is 1,000 pound of wheat on the table, and around that table, there is 100 broker. Each one of them shout a price of sell and buy, sell and buy, sell and buy. And people who are behind these brokers, the so-called investors, they are not investors. They are speculators. They are not investors. Those that are called wrongly investors in the capitalist system, they are behind them, giving them order, buy, sell, and they shout for the whole day from the morning until the evening. But notice, the 1,000 pound on the table remain as it is. There will be no increase of any single pound. No, not even 1 pound of grain will be added to them. They will be the same. And those so-called investors will go at the end of the day, some of them having more than what they started with, and some of them having less than what they started with. But the society did not benefit. The poor did not benefit. Nobody benefits from that except the brokers. They got their commission as part of the loss, really, that is happening to those people who lost. So we avoid the non-value producing the things. Not only future market, options. In the last time I checked that with the international or Bank of International Settlement in Basel, Switzerland, what was about 2 years ago. At that time, according to the estimation of the bank, there were $800 trillion invested in options. And what are options? The Islamic Fiqh Academy, the highest in the world, the most respected Fiqh Academy in the whole world, determined that options, although they are called financial rights, they are not acceptable in the Islamic system to be bought, to be held, to be owned, to be sold, or to be traded. Because in fact, they do not create added value. They are only tools of speculation, and we don't accept them. So notice, we divert resources from being used for future market, for options, for trading currencies, etc., and for debt sale and debt trading. We transfer all these resources. When we close these, as a matter of fact, satanic doors or ways of profiteering, when we close them and cancel them, then all these resources should be used and will be used for producing goods that benefit the human being, that reduces poverty in the world. When we withdraw these resources from the real market, as it is done in the capitalist speculative system today, we withdraw these resources from being working in agriculture and industry and trade both financial resources and human resources also, to be in the option market and future market and interest rate speculation and swap and all these. When we cancel them, resources will find only one way. If they want to make profit, that is to own or produce goods that benefit human beings. And that's the only way to earn. When it is done that, the only way to earn, that is rechanneling of all these resources. Of course, including what is called currency trading, this currency platform that trade currency uselessly, really. It saves a huge economic and human cost and pain caused by the harmful products. Of course, we know about fires that happened because of cigarettes. We know about car accidents that happened because of drinking drivers, etc., and all that. All this cost for repair and cost for health care, and also the pain that is caused to human beings, we save all that. We remove it from the market. We implant a concept, a principle, a spirit of hard working. If you want to earn, you have two ways. Either you work and you earn salary, or you give your property on finance, and your property generate added properties, must be able to generate added properties. Also, we have in today's world, in today's Islamic financial institution, in each institution, because I should say everywhere in the world today, wherever there exists Islamic financial institutions, like Islamic banks or Islamic insurance companies and the like, these institutions in a mixed society, mixed economy that we live in, they live side by side with the interest-based banks or sale of risk-based insurance companies and the like. We in this economy that is mixed, we live side by side. We need to interact definitely with the interest-based banks and interest-based and risk-based insurance companies. When we deal with all these, it so happens many times that we earn interest from them. And of course, earning interest is not permissible. Each Islamic financial institution today has a charity account in its inside it, always, all the time. And I know it because I am also a practitioner. I give advice to Islamic banks. We have the non-permissible income account. This income, whenever there is anything like that or a mistake happens, the income has to be taken to a non-permissible income, and this is always distributed to charity, cannot remain in the bank and cannot be distributed to depositors or to shareholders. After we discuss the most important element, and before I go to the other four contributors or components of Islamic social finance, I need to make a little introduction. So there are few issues. They are introductory really, but I need to explain them because they apply to component number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. They apply to all what we will discuss now. I have 5 or 6 points, maybe 6 points that I want to discuss. The concept of altruism through selfishness. In Islam, this concept is a deep concept, part of the Islamic teaching, part of the Islamic spirit. What is mentioned in the Quran repeatedly, al-amalu salih. What is the good deed? Doing good things. What is good things? Good things is to be good to others. And repeatedly in the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and also in the Quran, verses in the Quran repeat that the concept that if you want to have more reward with God, be good to others, give to charity, give to others, give your zakah, make awqaf, make all these, help others in all forms of help, personal, with your own personal body, and also with fund that you give. So the concept of altruism, if you want to have more reward with God, why do you do good to others? Why do you visit a person who is sick? You go and visit him and be kind to him, give him a gift. Because I want reward from God. It's not because of my love to him. It's because I want reward from God. So I am selfish. If you want to be the utmost selfish, then be utmost helper to others. Yani the examples are overwhelming in this. I'll mention a couple of them only. In the hadith, for instance, one hadith says that on the day of judgment, a rich person would come to the judgment, and God would tell him, I was hungry and you did not feed me. How come, God, you can be hungry and I didn't feed you? How come? He said, my servant XYZ was hungry and you knew about it and you did not feed him. So had you fed him, you could have fed me. I was sick and you did not visit me. My servant Fulan, so and so, was sick and you did not visit him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you sit in the mosque for prayer. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and he himself did it. A young girl one time came to him and he was in the mosque praying and making remembrance of God and so on. And she asked him, I need from you help. So she took her hand and went out of the mosque all the way to some place in the market, and he helped her with the help that she wants. So it's better than prayer, as the Prophet himself said it, helping others. So the whole idea of, if you want to be good, al-amalu salih, what is the savior in our religion? In the Islamic religion, belief alone is not a savior. You need, in addition to belief, you need the good deed. And that is why it is repeated in the Quran many times. So altruism comes through selfishness. If you want to be most selfish, be good to others, be altruistic. This is the concept, the Islamic concept that is taught all the way. And this concept is so emphasized in the Islamic ideology that it does not really exist, has no similarity in any other ideology, even religions, even monotheistic religions don't have the strength of that concept that we have it. At one time, 3 Catholics knocked at my door in California. They said, do you know whether you will be in hell or heaven? I told them, no, definitely I don't know, because I am, I make all my best all the time to please God and to do good things to other people, to even to animals. And so I get more rewards in order to be in heaven. They told me, the 3 of them, but we know we are going to be in heaven, because the priest told us We gave some donation to the church, and the church told us, the priest told us in the church, that you will be assured in heaven. So I told him, even if you kill a dog in the middle of the street, they didn't have an answer to that. Well, this is a concept that is very important in Islam. Another second point, giving to others is obligatory through the concept of zakah. It is encouraged all the time, but there is more than the concept of zakah. There are other obligations for helping the community, for instance, in creating an Islamic school or in creating a mosque. Both cannot be created from zakah. This is another obligation on people who are able, who have funding, who have properties that they can help in that. So not only the zakah is obligatory, there are several other obligations also in our religion where giving, if you find a poor and don't help him, that is definitely a sin. And definitely, if you can help and you did not help, this help is obligatory. You missed your obligation, for which God will question you on the day of judgment. So helping a needy person definitely is obligatory, and that is clearly known in our religion and well established in the religion. Guaranteeing the poor's needs. Government and community are responsible for guaranteeing the needs of the poor. There is no way that a stomach should be left empty, even if it were that every one of us may take half food, not full stomach. But there's no way that a stomach may be left empty. That is not acceptable by all means. And some scholars really interestingly say, if a person who is in need went to a government office of help and asked for help, definitely the office should help that person. But at the same time, when they help it, they should send also the moral investors, the social workers, to go to that neighborhood. Why his neighbors did not help him? Why did he reach to the government and his small community around him failed in doing the help? If we look at what is called the Sahifa, some of us may not have heard of these terms before. The Sahifa or Al-Sahifa, this is the constitution which was in writing, and it was dictated by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, himself, dictated to his writers. And then after discussion with the several components of the society in Medina, when the Prophet arrived in Medina, of course, he was protected by those who accepted Islam before. These are the believers. And there were some migrants that came also from Mecca before him and after him. But the society was consisting of three main groups. Those new Muslims, one group. The other group is the unbelievers. Many residents of Al-Madinah did not accept Islam that quickly. So they were still pagan. The pagan is group 2. The Jews is group 3. There was 3 Jewish groups. And they discussed the issue, and the Prophet drafted, of course, dictated it. He doesn't write himself. He dictated it, drafted the Sahifa. and the Sahifa was approved by all these components of the society and became the first written constitution in the world. This Sahifa states that any person who is in need, any poor person, any person who is hungry should be taken care of, should be fed by his community. And if his community failed, he'll go to the government, but again, the government will come to the community and check why they did not help him. It is their basic responsibility to help him, and the help must be made available. So this is a constitutional right. Now notice, in the Islamic religion, what the Prophet said or dictated is part of our religion. So it is part of our constitution and part of our religion at the same time. The next point, the concept of Qard al-Kifaya. Qard Kifaya, social contribution in any form of it, bodily, with your ideas, with your intellect, with your money, with your even hands and feet. This help, the contribution to the society is Fard Kifaya. It goes without any limit. And Fard Kifaya means that anyone who is able to make that help is personally responsible individually. He or she himself is responsible. It's not that it is a collective responsibility. It's a personal responsibility on each able. Until the objective is achieved, for instance, there is no more poor who needs help, then the others who did not make the help are relieved from that personal requirement. So this is the meaning of Fard al-Kifaya, and in social contribution, definitely it is a Fard Kifaya. For instance, if you want to pray in a group and there is no Imam, anyone who is able to be Imam, it becomes Fard, personal Fard on him to come forward and become Imam. We need to pave the mosque, and the mosque need pavement because of the dirt, to avoid dirt. So paving the mosque on those who are able to pay money for paving it, then it becomes personal requirement on them. If we have one poor person among us, it is a personal requirement on the person, anyone who is able to help him. And once one of those who are able helps, then it is done. The others are relieved. Of course, he got the reward from God, but they are relieved from that personal responsibility. The concept of socio-economic solidarity. Take the example of it. The Prophet, peace be on him, said about Zakat, it is to be taken from the rich and distributed to the poor. It is to be taken from the rich to be distributed to the poor. So this is socio-economic solidarity, and it goes on in all its aspects, that there is always that concept that whenever we need, those who are able, we call on them to make the performance. And once they perform, the need is done, and whatever help that is needed is already done. They are relieved then after it. But definitely taking from the rich and giving to the poor, if the need arises, is there. Property should not circulate among the rich. That's also another concept is mentioned in Surah number 58 of the Quran. In that surah, that relates to public sector, but definitely it gives the norm that property should not circulate among the rich. It should come to the poor and go from rich to the poor and so on. And we will discuss that now, the application of these 6 important issues. We will see them in the 4 points that are coming. The second one, I'm sorry I have taken more time, but still, please give me at least 15 minutes more. The second component of Islamic social finance is the Islamic third sector. Essentially, it is the Zakat, the Awqaf, and charity. Zakat, it is a right of the poor, not really a choice of the rich, not giving from the rich. It is a right of the poor. Remember, at the time of Trump, social welfare payment were reduced in America because it's a choice of the Congress. The Zakah is not a choice of the parliament in Islam. It is not a voting issue. It's a religious obligation. Even if the government does not implement it, it is the right of the poor and the right. I mean, in some of the classical books, Islamic classical books, they say if the rich did not make the payment to the poor becomes a partner of the rich in that share, the amount of zakah. So any profit that is generated after that, part of it belongs to the poor also. Second point, zakah is a permanent feature, permanent pillar of Islamic economic system. It is not temporary. Even if we fulfill all the needs of all the poor, and that happened historically twice at least, in more than one province of the Muslim land, historically at the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and then about 70 years later, at the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, it happened that both of them were named Umar, just by coincidence. So it happened twice that the poor were satisfied. There was no visible, or rather visible, sorry, there was no visible poverty. No poor exist, no poor accepted to take zakah, and there was extra fund still left. They were taken to other provinces, either to the poor or even to distribute as further income to the poor and the middle class. They were not given to the rich. Or they were given at the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz in about the year 100 of Hijrah. They used part of it for creating highways and creating rest areas on the highways. Of course, highways, the way they could be done at that time, they are all of the dirt and small rocks. But they were, and they created rest areas and supplies these rest areas with their needs also on the highways. So the zakah is a permanent feature, is not at the will or desire of the of people. It goes beyond the poor and needy to other social philanthropy. For instance, it can be used, of course, for helping the teachers who in schools, for helping students in schools, improving the schooling of the poor guys, improving the schooling in the poor area, and so on. It can be used for that. It is required on wealth and income, unlike the American tax system. The American tax system, in most of its features, is an income tax. Zakah is, if you want to call it a tax, I don't, but it is also a wealth tax. It is not only on income, it is on the wealth itself. So it is on wealth and income. So it generates huge amount, is not small. We need really studies. There are some studies about it. For instance, a study in Morocco said that if you collect zakah, the amount of zakah will be able definitely to raise the poor, not only from the level they are now, way below the minimum level of living, to raise them to become like the middle class, not in the in the minimum level of income only. So it is on wealth and income. Unlike what many people may think, its proceeds are substantial. They may go up to some 20% of income. They are not small, really. Historical application, it was able to eliminate visible poverty more than once in the Islamic history. There are other financial obligations too, in addition to zakah, like obligation to build a mosque, like obligation toward your family, own family, like obligation toward your neighbor, like obligation toward the guest. All these obligations are also financial obligations that are required in the Islamic system. The Awqaf was created by the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu, peace be on him. Notice, please, it was created for public drinking, water. And this was the first waqf that was done on enhancement, on request, on encouragement by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the drinking water was expensive. It takes good part of your income, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to make water free. So he said, why not someone buys from the owner this well from which people take drinking water, because many other wells were a little salty in Medina. So why someone of you buys this well and make it free for everybody? So Uthman ibn Affan did that, and he bought it and made it free for everybody. This was the first waqf that was created, and it was created on encouragement and on urgement, really, by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The default objective of waqf, according to the Islamic literature, is the poor and needy. And if the poor and needy satisfied, next is education. This is the objective of waqf in our Sharia. But of course, the founder of a waqf can do it any way he likes. We have waqf in our history to feed birds. We have waqf in our history to repair the water clock, for instance, that was, I've seen it in the city of Fez in Morocco, not working anymore. Because the waqf of it was stolen by somebody, apparently. But there was waqf for repairing this water clock, which was an invention there in front of the mosque in the city of Fez. So there were many other objectives, scientific research. There were many awqaf simply for scientific research, for medical research, and so on. Many awqaf of that. Of course, throughout our history, the public civil service was a sector really taken care of almost completely by the awqaf. Education, health, and social work and social assistance were all awqaf properties. Awqaf, by its nature, is very highly cumulative. Whatever awqaf done in a generation, they are not reverted in another generation. Awqaf is done usually permanently, and that is the normal thing, that they are done permanently, so they accumulate with time. Until that, several writers, yani we have Tharwat Armagan has a writing about Awqaf in Turkey, and he said about 1/3 or more of the arable land in Turkey is Awqaf. In Egypt, it is mentioned in the book of Abu Zahra, rahimahullah. Abu Zahra was a great scholar, professor in University of Cairo. In his book, he said that most of the land, the arable land in northern Egypt, were awqaf, and until the time of some rulers who kind of confiscated some of them and so on. In after the year 1800. So the awqaf were very important in countries like Turkey or Syria or Iran or Morocco or Egypt or Algeria, or awqaf were represented a large chunk of the economic assets and economic factors of production. Sadaqah or general charity is, of course, important, and it is mentioned in the Quran 167 times. Why Zakat itself is mentioned only 30 times. So there is a lot of encouragement on charity and charity's obligation on everyone. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be on him, said that for each small bone of the human body, there is a charity that you need to pay every day on it. So charity is, and even smiling in the face of your friend is a charity, and similar things. So charity, not only money, but also, but money is the essential part of it, yes, and there is a lot of encouragement on it. And under it also that you can talk about microfinance, about lending institutions. Muslims historically created cash waqf. The cash waqf was really a lending institution that should not take any increment on the loan. Give loans to those who need it. And the OIC Fiqh Academy. OIC is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And in the Fiqh Academy meeting in the year 2009, determined that Muslims should establish lending institutions in the form of cash waqf. The third component is the correction of market failure. Of course, you know, market failure may have different causes. Some causes, the market, because the market gives you only according to what you give in the market, you don't get more than what you give, and that is fairness. But that fairness, you may need more. Your family may be big. You may have a sick person. You may have some additional cost that the market cannot provide you with resources for it. Definitely, this correction comes from the zakah, the awqaf, and charity. So the correction of the market for redistribution of income through zakah. We have diffusion of wealth also. This is a corrector of the market through inheritance that we will discuss it. We have the moral and semi-legal supervision of the market. The concept of al-hisbah, it's a kind of Islamic ombudsman. This concept was practiced by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he himself appointed also a lady as a supervisor of the market. So if she sees any lack of fairness that may happen, someone exercising monopolistic power, or someone exercising excessive pressure, any form of pressure in a deal. This al-Hisba institution may interfere, and it is a quick interference. It's semi-legal, but not a full court. Whatever it does, it may go to the court later, but it is like quick action. And of course, we should notice that Awqaf exists in the market. Zakah exists in the market because you may distribute zakah in kind, so buy goods and distribute them. The government also exists in the market as a corrector of the market, because the public property, public ownership is huge in the Islamic system. So Awqaf, the third sector, in other words, Awqaf, zakah, exist in the market, and also the government also exists in the market in the Islamic system. So the corrector, the tools of correction in the market are quickly available. Pre-market wealth diffusion. The Islamic inheritance system is characterized by, it is based on the Islamic concept of ownership. Ownership in Islam, you own as long as you live. It's a gift from God to you, and you own it as long as you live. The moment a person dies, he or she is no more the owner. We do not allow, as in the Anglo-Saxon system, I should say, we do not allow the dead person who is under the dirt in the soil to control the alive. That doesn't happen. So you cannot make a last will that my son should do so and so with his share of inheritance, for instance. That is not in your power. Once a person dies, that person is no more the owner. In other words, the estate does not belong to the deceased. It belongs to God, and God distributes it. And he told us in the Quran, almost all the inheritance system in Islam is mentioned in the Quran. He told us how should it be distributed. And out of his mercy, really, that he chose to give it mostly to our kin, the closest kin. One interesting thing here is, unlike the American system of inheritance and of tax also, because if you make it in tax relate to inheritance also, because there are taxes involved, parents always inherit. For respecting parents, if parents exist, they always inherit. There is no way that a parent may not inherit his or her child. A parent always inherit. That's one interesting feature. But the concept of it, the wealth is diffused, is given to men and women in different ways, and so on, in a different setting. I can discuss, and I have a lot of explanation on that, why Islam gives women half the share of what they give men in most of the times. There are cases where they are equal, but most of the practical cases are men are given double the share of a woman. That I can discuss it, if you like, in another setting, and I am very strong and clear about it. I have no doubt. I wouldn't shy from telling the story, because that relates essentially to the role of men and women in the society, and we need to discuss it. Raising the future generation is the most important job of a woman, and she is more able and qualified to do that than a man, than her husband. She is more qualified because of her nature, because of her heart. She is more qualified, and raising children like we have the children now in Gaza, for instance. These were raised by the good women. Anas ibn Malik, for instance, was raised by a woman, his mother. And his mother wanted him to study and become really professor, really a great scholar, was the greatest scholar of his time, and that was due to his mother. Really, he didn't have father. His father died early, so that we can discuss it in a separate way. But the idea here is that wealth is not concentrated in few hands. It is diffused and it is God given. The last point, the Islamic fiscal system. Really, the example of the Islamic fiscal system is zakah. And zakah is to be taken from the rich and given to the poor. So, what are the main ingredients of the Islamic? Very quickly, uh, respect of private property. We don't like to make really taxes on private property. We hate taxes, and unless necessary, we don't impose taxes. You are free. You enjoy all your private property. Of course, you pay zakat. That's the right of God, not the right of the government. So the zakah is the right of the poor. You give it to the poor on behalf of God. So we hate taxes essentially, and only taxes are permissible when necessary. But when we impose taxes, we apply the principle of community solidarity, and we apply the principle of circulation of wealth and income. We don't take tax from the poor. We don't impose taxes that ended up paying equally by the poor and the rich, like taxes on bread, for instance, or like taxes on clothing, because really the difference between the clothing of the poor and the rich is not that big. There is a big difference, but it's not that big that if we impose taxes on clothing, it means we are taking more taxes from the poor than we should. So we impose taxes on those who are able only, on the rich, not on the poor. No circulation of wealth and income among the few hands. Priority of the obligation of the government. Why do you use taxes? The priority is the provision for the poor. If there is any need for the poor, definitely we can impose taxes. The principle of fard al-kifaya, that we discussed it, again also applies in when we impose taxes. Now, one thing we should always remember, that the definition of the word mal. Mal means property. What is a property? It's only a thing that causes no harm. If a thing causes harm, then it's not a property. It is not considered mal in Islam. And the responsibility is on both the wealth and the income. As the example of for instance, those highest rich in America, they have no tax on their wealth, almost. Although I personally, I pay tax on my wealth because I only own my residence. I own my house that I live in. In the Islamic system, the house you live in is exempt. You don't pay tax on it. But everybody in America pays tax on the house he lives in. But the wealth that is owned by these 700 richest persons in America, their main wealth is not their residence. Their residence is kind of normal. Could be rich, could be in several millions. But anyway, it won't be in the billions that they own. The billions that they own are not subject to taxes. That is the American tax system. the Islamic tax system is the example of it is definitely the Zakat, and we don't leave these without taxes. There are some studies in the Congress today that if we impose taxes on the wealth, 5% tax on the wealth of these rich people, and they make every year, they add to their wealth more than 5% every year. If we impose tax on them 5%, we don't need to charge anybody for, we give free health insurance, we give also free social assistance and free all the welfare system in America will be free, and we can give health free to every American. You don't need the health insurance companies anymore. By only 5% on the 700 wealthy on their wealth imposing tax. I am sorry for taking more time. I should have maybe cut it into 2 lectures instead of 1. I took almost 1.5 hours. Thank you very much for bearing it with me, and really I appreciate your acceptance until I finish. Thank you.
Professor Kahf, thank you very much for such a thought-provoking talk. Although you have detailed all the aspects of Islamic social finance with utmost eloquence, yet I think there are several questions from the audience. There are some appreciation messages for both Ummatics and for the lecture, but I would not be able to read them all out in this short time, but I'm grateful for the kind words there. Moving to questions, we have a question from Brother Sohail Maronisi. He has referred to your emphasis on the ethical aspect of Islamic finance, and he has asked your position regarding fintech, decentralized applications that are developed on blockchains with very volatile cryptocurrencies. And I think he specifically wants to ask the question about the aspect of gharar, volatility that is involved there. And the second thing which you have mentioned, that the addition of real value. So basically, since there's no addition of real value in such things. So, I mean, if you want to address these questions, we can move to the other ones later.
I mean, this part of it is if there is no additional value in these transactions, then these transactions are not permissible in Islamic finance. The Fiqh Academy, the International OIC Fiqh Academy, is going to discuss the issue of these virtual currencies in its coming meeting. It is not yet discussed. My own opinion, they are not currencies. They are not permissible to own or to trade or to buy and sell.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, Prof. Brother Sufyan has asked about the Islamic model of macroeconomics, and he has specifically asked if there's a possibility of having a currency which is not based off interest rate. Probably he's trying to ask if there can be a financial system where we don't have a monetary policy which is steered by the interest rate. So if that is possible, and if there are any books on Islamic macroeconomics that deal with this topic.
Well, yes, it is possible. And why we don't need monetary policy? We need monetary policy. Who said? And who said that money is based on interest? No, money, fiat money that we know now, and electronic money, when I use my credit card, need not to be based on interest. It can be without interest. Now the credit cards without interest are being practiced in a good practice. As a matter of fact, I have a credit card in my pocket from an Islamic bank in Istanbul, and it is not based on interest. Yes, they ask me, they do not give me time to pay for long period. I pay at the end of the month. At the end of each month, I pay, but it gives me the facility, at least, of using it quickly without carrying cash in my pocket. And it's not an ATM card. It gives me a bill at the end of the month, and I have a grace period to pay it, and I pay it. I'm required to pay it by the end of the month. So it is money is fiat money is not created, is not based on interest, and it's a false statement that somebody claims that, oh, because it is created in the banking system and because the banks have certain method of accounting, then it is based on interest. No, it is not necessarily based on interest. It is strictly related to interest in America, in the capitalist system. And in all countries that follow the capitalist system, unfortunately, whenever you find interest-based banks, then you find the trace of the capitalist system. There is no country in the world today that does not apply the capitalist system, unfortunately. But theoretically, is it possible? Yes. I have written on monetary policy in the Islamic system, and I am not really worried about money creation by the banking system. So don't worry about it. And I have no worry about it really at all. It's okay for money to, banks to create money. And the Islamic banks do create money. They don't do that the same way conventional banks do. They create money through the derived deposits only, but not through the granting loans, because they don't grant loans anyway. They give, instead of loans, they give goods and services and assets and create projects or contribute to creating projects with their customers as partnership.
Jazakallah, Prof. We have a question from a sister. Since some of our audience may not be from the same field, from Islamic economics and finance, so since you have written, mashallah, a corpus in the field of Islamic economics, she wants to know which books of yours should be a starting point for a new reader into this field.
There is a book in Arabic. Is good for a new reader, really. Now I forgot his name, but it was a dialogue between made by the publisher. The publisher wanted a dialogue between me and a capitalist economist. But it is in Arabic, really. So I wrote about the Islamic economic system. He criticized the Islamic economic system. I answered his criticism, and then he made reply to my criticism also. So this is the book. It's in Arabic. It's not a thick book. It's about 150 pages. That is one book. But for a little bit more advanced, I really suggest my book, which is translated in Turkish, as you know now. Brother Ahsan, you know, you were instrumental also in translating it. The book one of my series of notes on Islamic economics. I have 4 books notes on Islamic economics. Book one is the theories and institutions. So this book is available in Turkish, is available in English. Unfortunately, is not available in Arabic. Someone took my approval to translate it into Kazakhstan language. Okay.
Mashallah.
So
It's
a little bit advanced, but it's good. Yani, it's readable by even non-specialists.
Yeah, we can inshallah share the titles of those books which we have translated into Turkish, like your books, as well as the English ones, inshallah, with the audience later. Another question, Professor, is about the Islamic financial system again. And the question is more about the real world today. So it's been asked that which country in the world today has the best potential for the development of a healthy Islamic financial system?
Well, really, it's difficult to say, but I can say, there are several countries that are closer. For instance, Islamic finance now in Qatar, for instance, is about 25, 27, between 25 and 27% of the finance sector. In Turkey is improving. It's now about 7%, used to be 5. If it improves, then Turkey is definitely highly qualified to proceed further on that. In Saudi Arabia, it needs reform really, because it is about 40 or more percent, but it is mostly based on this not approved transactions called tawarruq and the like. So that's also a possibility.
Right, bro.
Kuwait maybe also has good. It's definitely more than 20% of the banking sector is Islamic banks.
And Prof, there has been some debate on the financial unions. People often refer to, like, the possibility of financial unions between the Muslim countries. So is there a possibility, do you see a possibility between Muslim countries to have such a financial union or network?
You see, we Muslims are highly unpredictable. That's, we should really know. Historically, we came out of nowhere in 30 years. From the desert of the Arabian Peninsula came, and they created a full new civilization, so big that it was the most lasting civilization. Really, historically, it lasted more than any other civilization. So we are unpredictable. A reform may come, and you may not think of it. And I see that a reform is going to come definitely from Egypt, from Turkey, from Indonesia and Malaysia, and from Pakistan and from Syria. Although you see it now in some of these countries, people are under high pressure, but it will come out of nowhere and you will find a sudden change.
Jazakallah, Prof. Actually, there are some other questions as well, but I think we are already over the time. And secondly, we have got members in the audience from different parts of the world. Some of them from Malaysia, where it's, I think, 2 a.m. at night right now. So I would apologize to the questions which could not be taken now. I would like to thank Professor Munzer specifically and the audience for participating in today's colloquium. And as always, I would request you to visit our website and social media accounts to read the new articles we have published and get notified about our upcoming events. And also, by doing so, you would be notified about, the recording once it's uploaded online of today's colloquium, inshallah. Jazakallah, Professor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that I was able to be with you, alhamdulillah. Thank you. Of course, I appreciate the Ummatic efforts and institute.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah.